So we're now at the fourth and final part of our overview of CS253, parallel functional programming with Java, Android, and Spring WebFlux. This will kind of summarize what we've talked about, and it'll also give me a good chance to walk through various websites that are part of the course that you'll need to be aware of and know how to access. So it probably goes without saying, but in the interest of completeness, I'll say it anyway. You'll get out of this course what you put into it. That's true of any course at Vanderbilt, but particularly true of courses that involve a lot of programming. Be prepared to work hard. Of course, whether something is hard or work depends on your perspective. I love to program, so for me, programming is actually fun, and it seems relatively easy, but of course I've been doing it for a long time. But you'll have to be ready to kind of, roll up your sleeves and dig in and learn how to do the coding and especially the debugging part. Please, please, please do not miss deadlines. The course moves quickly. There's a lot of material. There's a lot of hand-holding from our side, but there's a responsibility on your part to make sure that you get things done in a timely manner. So don't miss deadlines, please. Also, please make sure to participate in discussions in class and on Piazza. A very effective way to get aware of stuff is to dig into it, ask questions, help answer questions when you know the answer. And if you take a look at the link at the bottom here, I should have sent you out a link that invites you to join the Piazza version of the course. And if you take a look at that, you'll see a welcome message that I've pinned, so it'll always be there, that says things like how to join via office hours, how to be able to use Brightspace for the quizzes and final exams, what versions of Java we're using, and so on and so forth. There's all kinds of information there that you can leverage and avail yourself of in order to be able to get the most out of the class. Please get in the habit of checking Piazza frequently. So don't let things go by, and make sure that you keep up with this stuff, and it'll make everybody's life so much easier. I would say try to check it a couple times a day, especially as we get close to the due dates for various things. Chances are someone is probably asked a similar question that you have, or if they haven't, you can ask the question and then you can benefit from the answers. You'll see when we look at Piazza here in a second, there's a couple of different ways to use it. So I want to talk about that. But let's take a look at my website to learn more about how to do this. So here we are on the Piazza website. You can see that you can post questions. You can read posts that I've given. There's a couple of different ways to post. You can post either anonymously or with attribution. I don't mind which one you do. Please be aware I can see who's posting anonymously, so keep it clean, but you'll be anonymous to other students, which is fine. There's also a couple other things. You can either post publicly or you can post privately. If it's a question that's a confidential matter, or if you have a code snippet that you want me to review to give you some feedback, please post that privately so that others don't see your confidential information or your information that's covered by the honor code. But if it's a general question like when will the quiz be, or some more general conceptual question about topics we cover, please post that publicly, and that way I can answer and everybody can benefit from the answer. Also, please feel free to give answers if you know the answers if someone has posted and I haven't had a chance to respond to it yet. Sometimes people will send me questions privately that I think are actually more use for the class in general, so I will repost them publicly, but of course I will maintain your anonymity, so don't ever feel shy about that. I won't divulge you if you don't want to be divulged. So please get in the habit of looking at Piazza a couple times a day, because there's all kinds of useful stuff that's going to be there. Returning back to the slides, something else that's really important: no laptops or phones used in class unless we're explicitly doing something that requires them, like filling out course evaluations at the end of the course. There's a bunch of reasons for this, not the least of which is it's been my experience that people who spend time browsing their phones or their computer aren't actually listening to the lecture, and then they inevitably will come to me in office hours or post questions that make it clear they weren't paying attention. So let's just short circuit that whole frustration. Failure to comply with this rule can cost you participation points, and there's no need to lose participation points unnecessarily. So just don't do that. Again, because we record all the lectures, if you need to go back and take notes, you can always go back and watch the lectures, either playing them back faster if you want to blaze through them, or you can slow them down if you think I talk too fast. Either way, you've got all the material there, so you don't necessarily have to take notes in real time. Please make sure you avail yourself of the available resources in the class. There's some recommended textbooks we'll talk about. There's office hours we'll talk about. There's online forums we'll talk about, which we have talked about. That's Piazza. There's links galore in the slides. The PDF versions of the slides have lots of clickable links. You're not required to read them all. They're just there if you want to get more information about the topics we're covering. And of course, all the videos are recorded too, and I put them up on YouTube, so you can watch those at your convenience. My website also contains lots of useful information, so let's go take a look at that. So here's my course website. This is what you get to if you go to the link, click in the slides. It tells you where the class is. You've obviously figured that out by now. It tells you when the final exam will be and what means the final exam will be administered in. It has a summary of the course philosophy, talks about the prereqs, including the honor code. There's also things in here about assignment deadlines, the course frequently asked questions file, some things about how to submit the assignments. There's kind of a synopsis of what we'll be covering in the course. There's a summary of the coursework. And then there's also links to textbooks that are recommended or other online resources. I think the book Modern Java in Action is particularly relevant. And if you have a chance to get that book, you'll really benefit quite a bit. That's how I learned a lot of this stuff years ago. All the lecture videos in the course will be available on my YouTube playlist here. Right now, I just have the walkthrough of Assignment 1A. Please make sure you watch that video. It gives you an overview of the specification. It walks through the skeletons and gives you some hints on how to do the solution. It shows you how to run the unit tests, and it also runs the application in the emulator so you can see it behave in practice based on the implementation that you'll be doing or what you ought to be doing. There's also another playlist here that contains a bunch of videos I recorded several years ago relating to functional programming in Java. And the first 16 or so of these short videos are really the ones you should look at if you don't know much about Lambda expressions or method references or functional interfaces. The videos that come after that are also interesting, but they're a little bit more specialized, and you don't necessarily need to know everything that's in them in order to be able to master the foundational Java functional programming features. So those are some good YouTube playlists to go take a look at. I will be putting the slides and the videos for each week's lectures here in these links, or what will soon be links. And then the assignments for the course are going to be here as they're created. And this is my CS253 repository. As you can see right now, we just have assignment 1 and a README file. There's also a wiki section where we give the deadlines for the assignments, so you can see when the deadlines are. Frequently asked questions that we'll be covering that will be useful for you to know in order to be successful. A couple years ago, one of my students made a nice web page that provided a tour of how to use Git for the assignments in the class. So that was very nice of that person. So I have gone ahead and included this in my wiki site. There's also an overview here of how to install the software, very similar to what we just talked about before for creating your GitLab repository. And we also have office hours. So I'll be doing my office hours after class from 10 to 11 in the Wondery, and also have the online Zoom link version. If you have any problems accessing that, please let me know. And I'll be putting up the office hours of the other graders here as soon as that information is available. So let's return to the slides. Please resist the urge, as I mentioned before, to email me directly. Only do that if it's a confidential matter or if you'd like to schedule a meeting. And in that case, please use a private Piazza post. The reason that sending me email is not a good idea is my email I get a lot of email. And so as a consequence, it's easy for email to get lost. And I don't want to lose what it is that you've asked me. So if you post it on Piazza, it's much easier for me to track that. And especially if you do public posts, someone else may be able to get to it before I do and give you a way to keep moving ahead without waiting for me to do that. Something else that's probably worth noting, there are all kinds of opportunities for people who learn the material, who master the material that we're covering in class. So if you take a look at the link down below, every year they put out the salary projections for people in different fields, and you can see that computer science has the best starting salary projection, and it's increased from last year, which is a good sign. And in the computer science, in the engineering school, computer science, I think, has been the top paying major for some time, which of course probably accounts for the fact that we have a lot of majors now. But the good news is if you put a lot of work in and you master this material, there's a payoff at the end of this process, which you should be aware of. And then finally, I'm obligated to tell you what to do in case there's an emergency of some kind. So You can go and look at this link to find out what the evacuation plan is, or more intuitively, just walk out the door and walk up the circular stairs and leave the building. That's a very easy way to remember how to get out of the class. I think if there's an emergency, that's by far the safest thing to do. But of course, if the stairs are on fire, there's other ways to get out of the building, but that would be the most convenient way to get out in the very, very unlikely event that we ever have to evacuate. So that's the end of part 4 of the overview, and now it's time to get into the actual meat of the course.